All right, well, I think we're going to get started here. We've got about 100 people on right now. We have many more who have registered who I think are going to join as we move along. Just to let all of you know who are on the webinar right now, thank you for joining us. This webinar is being recorded, which you should see at the top of your screen, your Zoom screen. Please give us your patience today. This is our first time ever doing a webinar. We've been using Zoom for our individual conference calls for our committee, but first time with a webinar, so we hope it works out okay. I want to thank you all for being here. Thank particularly our panelists for agreeing to participate today for the 7th Vanitec Energy Storage Committee meeting. As you know, this was originally scheduled to be held in person together in Dusseldorf in conjunction with the International Flow Battery Forum, and we have Anthony Price on the webinar today. Welcome, Anthony. Unfortunately, due to the current situation in the world, we're going to do this remotely. We hope it works out fine, and perhaps this will be a forum for us to do some future events as well. So thank you for joining. I want to just briefly start, though, with a couple of housekeeping items. The first of which is this is the registration that went out, and in the bottom right-hand corner, you see the agenda for today. We're going to start off with an overview, both of Vanitec and our Energy Storage Committee. And we'll have an update on the market from Terry Perlis. Our friends at Australian Vanadium have put together a presentation on the reuse and recycling of vanadium electrolyte. And then we have a VRFB marketing update for you. After this webinar ends at 10 o'clock US Eastern, approximately 2 hours from now, we have a separate call for VRFB developers. That's by invitation only. If you have been invited to that and you have not yet registered, please do so. That'll take place immediately after this ends. If we end early, it will start on the hour at 10 o'clock Eastern US, 1600 Central European time, and 2200 in China. So please, if you have not registered for that yet and you got the invite, please register there. This is the Vanitec antitrust policy, which we need to take care of today. I'm going to summarize it a bit for you, though. Presentations and remarks today on pricing will only relate to historical pricing. The data that's been presented will be sufficiently aggregated to meet US and EU antitrust safe harbor guidelines or is publicly available. No discussions here today will take place on the effect of historical data on current or future prices. No agreements will be made to adopt uniform pricing, leasing conditions, or fees for services. And information on proprietary aspects of a company's technology related to vanadium batteries will not be shared. Technological standards will not be used to exclude competitors. Please keep that in mind as you ask questions today, and I asked all of our panelists to keep those guidelines in mind as well. Another quick housekeeping item, we are encouraging questions. I'm going to try to monitor the Q&A function in here. I'm not going to be monitoring the chat room. I see people are already chatting in there, welcoming each other. If you have a question, please use it in the Q&A function on Zoom. Time permitting, I will address those questions to the panelists at the end of their topic. If we don't have time, we will try to address those afterwards in writing to share with everyone after the webinar. Note that, again, the webinar is being recorded. It will be available on the Vanitec website under our VRFB tab after the webinar ends. I just want to give a quick update on Vanitec. I am John Hilbert, the CEO of Vanitec. Our job is to expand markets for vanadium and promote a stronger industry. We are the only not-for-profit global member organization promoting vanadium. Our members benefit for our work in technical areas, on market development, health and safety issues, and a forum to collaborate and understand and promote the uses of vanadium at a global level. You may have seen these at some of our past meetings. Just want to give you an idea of who our members are. These are the members in the Americas, in Australia, Asia, in China, and in Europe, Russia, and in South Africa. We operate in 3 main committees. This one, obviously, you're aware of today because you're joining us, our Energy Storage Committee, which you'll hear more about in a bit. We have a Market Development Committee, which works on other activities to promote vanadium and undertake steel research in new and emerging technologies. Our statistics program on the monthly and quarterly consumption and production of vanadium. We also have a very active Health, Safety, and Environment Committee. We have scientists and consultants from around the world helping us out to deal with things like the REACH regulations in Europe, other health and safety issues that come up around the globe, as well as we undertake some of our own research. And then finally, we have our administrative team in the UK. Just a bit about joining Vanitec. We have two types of membership. One is for those who are producers of vanadium. Those dues are per calendar year and based on their amount of production or conversion of vanadium. If you are a producer or converter, you have to be a full member of Vanitec. And again, those dues are based on your levels. We do have a second level of membership, associate members, for those who do not currently produce or convert or meet the bylaw, but still meet bylaw criteria. Associate member dues are $10,000 per year if you intend to produce or convert vanadium in the future, and $5,000 per year if you do not intend, but you are somehow still involved in the vanadium industry, either as a manufacturer, electrolyte manufacturer, research institute. For those who are in that category of having been involved in the VRFB, we do have a separate membership category for the Energy Storage Committee. It gives you access to all of our meetings, gives you access to our stats, gives you access to Energy Storage Committee, and we have an introductory first-year fee of half price, $2,500 for VRFB companies. So if you're interested in joining Vanitec, please let me know. You've got my contact information. I'll be happy to talk with you about joining Vanitec. I'm going to turn it over now to the chairman of the Vanitec Energy Storage Committee, Mikhail Nikimorov from Bushveld Energy, who's going to give you a couple more slides here and introduce our next speaker. So I'm going to turn this over to Mikhail to get started. Go ahead, Mikhail.
Thanks, John. So hopefully everybody can see me now, also socially distanced like everybody else. Thanks for that introduction, John. I guess the first question, especially folks who have not yet seen or been to our previous presentations, and I think one of the benefits of this virtual setup is the ability to kind of reach a broader audience. So the question is, well, why does a group of an association of vanadium producers even have an energy storage committee? And that really boils down to the potential impact that energy storage has on vanadium demand. So this is a slide from a report by the World Bank group that had just come out actually earlier this year, and it talks about the minerals that are impacted or potentially impacted by demand from energy storage. And as you can see, whereas a couple of the maybe the ones at the top are quite familiar to folks, especially if they're following kind of lithium technologies. Vanadium is number 5 in terms of the mineral that is going to be most impacted by the energy transition and the movement from fossil fuels to clean energy, and the need for storage that comes along with kind of the redesign of the entire energy landscape that we are part of, and it's basically a kind of a fait accompli at this point. And so that creates a massive opportunity for the vanadium producers. But at the same time, there are some challenges that come with that. And if I can get pages to move correctly, I'll explain to you how that works. Okay. So we, So we talked about the opportunity for vanadium. The challenge is that of all the technologies kind of in any state of commercial or pre-commercial deployment, you can see that the vanadium redox flow batteries all the way on the right in terms of how important the chemical contribution is of the materials to the technology itself. And it is by far the most significant one. And obviously some of these minerals are commodities, so the value on one day or another will change. So this is just information out of one report out of from ARENA, the International Renewable Energy Alliance. But what you can see is it's because you're all the way on the right, that does create some challenges. The interesting thing is it also creates some opportunities, and really what Vanitec is here to do through the Energy Storage Committee is to engage with the part of the sector that is the energy storage sector at the moment, that is the vanadium redox flow battery. Although you could envision other other technologies that use vanadium in storage as well. It's just none of them are kind of that massive uplift opportunity or in terms of their status of commercialability. So this challenge is well known. It is something that I think any kind of battery company gets asked after an initial phase of due diligence. And it's something where really collaboration between different participants in the value chain become quite important. And it's also why a number of initiatives that the Energy Storage Committee has been looking at in terms of electrolyte, in terms of vanadium electrolyte leasing or renting that we've talked about, and also some of the other topics that you will hear later today. They really come from the fact that it's both a massive opportunity, but at the same time a fairly unique challenge that may not be as an extreme challenge to some of the other technologies. So with these two kind of factors in mind, both in 2016, the Energy Storage Committee was set up by Vanitec. You saw that there's already a couple of other committees that existed prior to that. And I think it highlights the importance of this industry and this potential path to more demand and use for vanadium. And really that's the purpose of the ESC is to drive that and to focus on that in the energy storage market. We tend to have one in-person meeting, which this is kind of replacing, usually on the Monday before the Flow Battery Forum, which is coming over in the next couple of days, also virtually. But it's been kind of a good structure for us. It is for an opportunity for us to engage with the market and with a broader audience. It has always been free, whereas our sessions that are tied to the rest of the organization, usually in April and October, are closed. So this is kind of a unique form of that, and we've had quite a bit of success with it. So we're very keen to continue. It's been a good opportunity to talk about the market and other things going on in energy storage. So this is our first virtual version, and John said to please bear with us for any technical challenges. But we think it's a it might be something that we think about further because a lot of the content that is shared now we can actually store and then can be replayed by people later on. So it doesn't have to only be live. I think the other great benefit is a lot of travel was needed to go to where where the forums were located, usually in Europe. So this creates an opportunity to have a lot broader access, and I can just see from the participants number that we're probably at twice where we were last year, even though we in person the attendees the numbers were actually quite good. What we're going to do though is have a more compact session today. And really just cover only three topics besides this intro. So one is we'll have an update on the vanadium market, which I think is very important for people to understand. The second is we'll get an update on something that came out of one of the battery breakout sessions that we did at the end of the session last year. And that's around, can we create some sort of a white paper from the industry on the fact that the electrolyte is reusable from a sustainability point of view and how that process might work. And then the third part is, one of our major initiatives out of the ESC was to market the technology and see how we can elevate the information about the technology, about the companies, and that solution, and expand it beyond just some press articles, but also talk about and use social media, the different channels that are available. Please keep this session as interactive. So if you do have questions for anything you see, just write them down Q&A, and John has said, he will answer. And we, after each of the three presenters, there will be actually an opportunity to answer those questions as well. We want to keep it interactive, so I think a little bit harder virtually, but that is definitely one of the priorities. Page. So the interesting thing is about this year to date. So 2020, I think for all of humanity has been challenging and difficult in ways that we probably didn't expect. The interesting thing is for me as kind of both a participant in the sector and an all-looker from the side is that the momentum for vanadium redox flow batteries seems to be unaffected by the situation. And there's been a few interesting announcements and developments. Recently I read in kind of the vanadium weekly, actually daily update ferroalunite that Shanghai Electric is moving forward with another one of these large, maybe they're called pilots in China, 100 megawatt batteries a pilot there. But with another one of these, we know that there's a system under construction in Dalian, and there was another one in Hubei. And so this is interesting to see a third very large technology. I think a lot of times the news out of China doesn't make it to some of the English language press, but nonetheless, that was an interesting development. Certainly what did make it to the English language press was the joint venture to build a facility, not necessarily a battery, but a manufacturing facility in Saudi, kind of maybe a second gigafactory for flow batteries. That was outside of what is already in China. So that's an interesting development. And really, I think the first time we're seeing a lot of this large scale movement outside of Japan and China in terms of the technology. So that's quite positive. There's been a lot of M&A activity on batteries in general, and I think that the VRFB has not been immune to that, which is good. We could see that through Invinity, which is an ESC member. So we're happy to kind of mention them as well. But I think that was a very successful merger of two existing VRFB companies in different locations, and I think that's also kind of maybe foretelling of how the industry is maturing when you actually have M&A activities between two players. And also recently we saw an example of Enel, developing a project, and that's a very large global utility, and IPP. EDF is also involved in another project that uses VRFB technology in the UK. So we're seeing some of these larger global players getting into the tech, using the tech, which is quite nice. So it's not only, I think, just a question of what's going on in Japan, what's going on in China. We're seeing a lot more traction, especially this year, in other parts of the world, and that's quite exciting because, well, we're only in June, so a lot more is yet to come. So I think with that, we still remain very positive as to what this year will bring for the technology and for vanadium, and that's quite exciting because it could have been a very negative story. So with that, I'd like to kind of introduce our first speaker and hand over to.
We do have one question for you already.
Already? Okay.
Yes.
Wow. Please
explain in more detail the statement that vanadium's relative contribution will only increase.
So the logic of that statement is if you think about the battery, it has, and I'll talk a little bit maybe more about it. So I'm not trying to advertise for my short presentation later this week at the Flow Battery Forum. But if you think about the components of a battery, it has certain parts that are commodity components, like a mineral such as vanadium, and it has other components that are manufacturing that can be improved through R&D, through economies of scale, through better supply chain management. And what you see over time, and we've seen this in lithium as well, is that the other components can become cheaper, through working practices and scale and things like that. And so the cost of a solution can come down, but there's a theoretical floor that it has, which is the raw material costs. The stuff that is bought on the market and can't become cheaper because it's a function of supply and demand and just a market-based economy. So when these other components that are really around doing things better come down, the component that is a commodity does not change unless there's an R&D to replace that commodity. So if you assume that you will need the same amount of vanadium, and you can decrease the costs of the other components through better manufacturing and purchasing power and things like that, then the percentage that the vanadium contributes will grow. So as the battery becomes cheaper, the percentage of the piece that is a commodity will relatively increase. In absolute dollar numbers, it will not, but as a percentage, it will become larger as the cost of the overall system comes down.
All right, thanks.
Can I now introduce Terry?
Yes, go ahead, introduce Terry. I'll give Terry controls while you're doing that.
Terry, you're introduced. So with the exception of last year, we've always been privileged to have Terry Pearls talk through the vanadium market